What if I told you the person who defined the DNA of Heroes of Might and Magic is coming back to the universe he helped create? John Van Caneghem is one of those rare game creators whose fingerprints are all over an entire fantasy strategy genre. Might and Magic, Heroes of Might and Magic, and the original King's Bounty didn't just happen. They were guided, designed, directed, and held together by one core creative vision. And now, John Van Caneghem is returning to the Heroes universe, thanks to Unfrozen making it possible. In a moment, we will talk about what that could mean for Olden Era. Before we speak about the return, let's talk about the basics. Who is John Van Caneghem in the Heroes universe? John Van Caneghem founded New World Computing, and he's the creative force who defined the style, tone, and systems that made Might and Magic and the Heroes series feel like classics, not just games. When fans try to explain what makes Heroes so compelling, the adventure map, the distinct factions, the creatures, the constant temptation to explore, and the iconic battles, Van Caneghem is one of the main reasons those ingredients work together. Yet he always made it clear that it was a team effort bringing the Heroes series to life. And if you look at the classic era credits, a few standout names fans still mention are David Mulick, Gregory Fulton, Mark Caldwell, plus composers Paul Romero and Rob King, among many others who helped shape the series across multiple Heroes games. Let's start with the origin point that might get overlooked, the original King's Bounty. Released in 1990s, King's Bounty is basically the prototype for Heroes. You explore a map, recruit armies, gather gold and artifacts, and fight turn-based battles. This is important. Heroes of Might and Magic didn't appear out of nowhere. John Van Caneghem helped create the King's Bounty's formula, and then that formula evolved into Heroes. Then there's the backbone, the Might and Magic role-playing series. Starting with Might and Magic Book 1 in 1986, John Van Caneghem made his design debut and helped shape what the series became over the next decades, eventually reaching 9 main entries that he co-created. And this is where the universe part matters. Might and Magic was about adventure, mystery, wonderful fantasy charm, and exploration. And that vibe, along with key pieces of its lore, carried over into Heroes. Now we reach the era most of us obsess over, Heroes of Might and Magic 1 through 4. John Van Caneghem created Heroes of Might and Magic and helped direct the series from the start, taking that King's Bounty foundation, merging it with the Might and Magic universe, and turning it into a strategy format that felt instantly addictive. And whether your favorite is Heroes 2, 3, or even 4, you can feel the same guiding philosophy. Wandering the map, uncovering hidden places, and watching your army grow with every step. Each faction feels like a living fantasy realm, with creatures and castles that have their own identity and charm. Artifacts and spells turn simple decisions into legendary moments, and battles where every stack matters, and every loss feels personal. And once you fall into that rhythm, it's the kind of game where one more turn quietly turns into a long night. After 3DO's unfortunate collapse, the Rise to Might and Magic and Heroes series eventually ended up with Ubisoft, which then kicked off their era with Heroes 5, a follow-up many fans still consider a strong entry. As for John Van Caneghem, he kept working in the games industry, taking leadership and production roles, and later launching new projects of its own. The key point is this: the Heroes series' classic DNA, the tone, the rhythm, the feel people still talk about, comes from that early period under Van Caneghem's direction. Now, let's talk about the part everyone's curious about. John Van Caneghem is returning to the Heroes universe in a new capacity and is partnering up with Unfrozen. The understanding is that his role will be an honorary creative advisor. Let's talk about what his involvement likely means, especially for Olden Era. Here are a few possibilities. First, it's an identity check, making sure the game feels like Heroes, that the fantasy comes through clearly, and the world feels adventurous, not just functional. Second, it's about world-building consistency, making sure factions, creatures, and magic all feel like they belong to the same universe, with a clear style and internal logic. Third, it's protecting the classic rhythm. Heroes players care about a very particular flow. You explore, you grow, and then you clash in decisive battles. An advisor can help preserve that pacing even as the game modernizes. Fourth, it's the small details fans always notice. Artifacts, spell names, creature roles, even UI flow, tiny choices that add up to that feeling of, yeah, this is right. So when people ask, why does John Van Caneghem matter? The answer is simple. Because he helped define the template. The original King's Bounty leads into Heroes. Might and Magic builds the world and tone. And Heroes 1 to 4 becomes the strategy legacy that still shapes fantasy tactics games today. And a quick personal side note. I actually met John Van Caneghem just last Christmas at a small gathering Unfrozen organized, and they kindly invited me to Warsaw. I only spoke briefly with Van Caneghem, but my impression was clear. He's a very kind, gentle person, and you can tell he still carries a real passion for fantasy and games. And during that trip, I was invited to the Heroes Orchestra Christmas concert. It was my first time hearing Heroes music performed live by an orchestra, and honestly, if you ever get the chance to attend, I would wholeheartedly encourage you to go. The music hits differently when it's live. You suddenly remember why the series lives in people's heart. I am eager to hear your thoughts about this news. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. This is Anna with Heroes Take Turns. Farewell until we meet again.